Well, dear Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, it's my real pleasure to present the final data of the COBRA trial here at the TCT in Washington. I had the honor to be a co-investigator, and of course, as a co-investigator, I got source fundings for the study. Well, this is not a bare metal stent. This is not a drug-eluting stent. It's something in between. It has a coating, as you can see here, with polysine F, a very thin coating, which has a fluoro molecule. So, as you know, the fluoro molecules are repellent to thrombotic events. So let's see what the clinical data are. Well, first of all, there was a predecessor here they called the Catania stent, a very first generation, and these are the results. For the sake of time, I have only 7 minutes. I cannot read them all. There's also preclinical data. Reno Vermani is here on the board, and maybe we can discuss the preclinical data later. Well, this trial actually is a multi-center prospective single-arm trial. And there was a control group, which was the control cooperator, performance goal derived from historical clinical trials, including one or more BMS arms. The primary endpoint compared to this group was target vessel failure, cardiac death. I read this here because it included also peri-procedural MIs, which is important to understand the result at 9 months. Let me skip this for the sake. You will have the presentation anyway. So. Since I have only 7 minutes, as I said, I make this shorter. Well, the trial organization, it was my real pleasure, together with Donald Cutlip here on the board, to be co-PI. And here you can read all the angiographic collapse. So it was a very thorough, good study. The European sites are listed here. Our pleasure was to be number 2 in Europe. Latvia actually was number 1. And I was very happy that we could gain a lot of American sites for this trial. So this is a real inter-Atlantic, so to speak, study. Well, the baseline characteristics are pretty as more or less all-comer trials. I just want to emphasize that about 1/3 of the patients had unstable angina. If you look at the angiographic data here, I want to emphasize that over the half of the patient had B2C lesions, so these were not just easy single lesions type A. So this is more or less what's representative for everyday use. The post-procedural outcome was good, so instant final stenosis was 7.7%, so the delivery of the stent was very well done. And here are some results. Let's start with instant diameter stenosis, and as you can see here, post PCI and at follow-up. At the first glance, it looks like a regular bare metal stent, but the angiographic restenosis, more than 50%, was 25% of the patients. But if you look at the real severe restenosis, greater than 70%, only 5 patients showed that. The secondary endpoint was angiographic instant late loss, and as you can see here, with a late loss of 0.84, the primary performance goal was met, so this endpoint was reached. How much is 0.8? Actually, it's right, so in the middle, it is between the drug-eluting stents and the bare stents. So of course, it's closer to the bare stents than the drug-eluting stents, but I think this is a number which we can live. The primary endpoint was a clinical endpoint, and again, this primary endpoint also met the performance goal. Here is the mean value of 11.5% and the standard deviation, so it is really good results. Let's look a little bit closer to this 11.5% of target vessel failure, which seems at the first glance a little bit high. If you look at the first 30-day results, actually target vessel failure was primarily driven by peri-procedural MI. And this was a consequence of the protocol, which is CKMB. So if an operator occluded a side branch, for example, which has not really much to do with the PzF shielding, then it was counted as a TVF. But during follow-up, if you count this together up to 270 days, actually the final TLR, and this is the stent characteristic, was only 4.6%. If you compare this 4.6%, well, of course, this is always a problem comparing different studies with all the restrictions, but I think 4.6% is more in the range of the drug-eluting stents than the previous bear stents. Stent thrombosis, of course, was very interesting, and we had no stent thrombosis, no early and no late stent thrombosis. And comparing this to other drug-eluting or bare metal stents, let me go back here, I think the 0% is a very interesting finding. DAP duration was rather long. I was a little bit surprised. Only 1/3 had unstable angina, but still every second patient had longer than a month. I think this is due to the American centers. The Americans, I think, tend to give longer dual antiplatelet therapy than the Europeans. So in summary, we can say that the PzF COBRA stent met the primary endpoint, which was good, of the predefined performance goals for 9 months of target vessel failure and instant late loss. Myocardial infarction beyond the peri-procedural period was infrequent, so this explains the target vessel failure number by side branches or whatever included. Clinically driven TLR was low, only 4.6% as compared to standard BMS. With 0% stent thrombosis, the strength of the PzF shielded stent seems to avoid stent thrombosis, and therefore I think further studies are needed to assess the potential role of the COBRA PzF stent in patients at high risk for bleeding and or who require abbreviated dual antiplatelet therapy. Thank you.